For years, Discovery have been encouraging everyone to make your world bigger. And that is exactly what I'm now doing. And then also, of course, you had to be able to serve ice cream before and after the event, and that was really the nub of the problem.
Millions believed Ed China and Mike Brewer were inseparable. But behind Wheeler Dealer's shiny restorations, hidden battles raged. Secrets, disagreements, and painful fallout would change the show forever. The truth is shocking. When Wheeler Dealers first aired in 2003, no one could have predicted it would become one of the most beloved car shows in television history. Combining business smarts with mechanical brilliance, it offered something fresh and authentic. Viewers were not just watching cars being flipped for profit. They were learning the secrets of restoration, step by step, in a way that felt approachable and fun. At the heart of that success were two men who could not have been more different, yet perfectly complemented each other. Mike Brewer was the enthusiastic, sharp-talking car dealer who could sniff out a bargain in any situation. Ed China was the calm, methodical mechanic who transformed broken-down wrecks into polished machines with a mix of skill, creativity, and patience. Together, they created a chemistry that was rare on television. For more than a decade, the show thrived and expanded globally. But in 2017, everything changed. Ed China announced he was leaving the series. Fans were shocked. Speculation ran wild. Was it personal conflict, creative differences, or something deeper? What really pushed Ed away from Wheeler Dealers? To answer that, we have to go back to the beginning and retrace how Wheeler Dealers grew, how the pressures of success mounted, and how cracks in the partnership began to show. The early magic. Wheeler Dealers stood out from other car shows because it was educational and entertaining at the same time. Most automotive programs focused on drama, shouting, and artificial deadlines. Wheeler Dealers, on the other hand, gave viewers a front-row seat to real work. Mike Brewer would hunt down a car, negotiating hard for the lowest possible price. Then, once the deal was struck, Ed would step in. Tall, soft-spoken, and wearing his signature gloves, he would explain every job in a way that made even the most complex repairs seem manageable. From engine rebuilds to bodywork, Ed broke down processes with clarity that earned him a reputation as one of television's best teachers. The formula was simple but powerful. Mike brought energy, excitement, and deals. Ed brought technical depth and calm precision. Together, they offered balance. One was the showman, the other was the craftsman. Audiences connected not only with the cars, but with the personalities. The relationship between Mike and Ed was genuine, and fans could feel it. Rising popularity and international expansion. The early UK seasons laid the foundation, but the big leap came when Wheeler Dealers expanded its scope. By 2013, the show shifted production to the United States. This decision opened doors to new markets, new audiences, and a treasure trove of American cars. Suddenly, viewers were seeing Mustangs, Camaros, and muscle cars alongside the quirky European classics that had defined the early episodes. This move wasn't just about variety, it was about scale. With a bigger production budget and exposure to the massive American market, Wheeler Dealers became a global brand. Discovery Channel promoted it heavily, and its audience grew rapidly across Europe, Asia, and beyond. But with bigger reach came bigger expectations. The relaxed, detailed pace of the original show began to collide with the network's push for tighter editing, faster turnarounds, and a glossier format that could compete with other mainstream automotive shows. The show's DNA was slowly shifting, and fans began to notice. As seasons went on, longtime viewers realized something was different. The repair sequences, once the core of the show, seemed shorter. Steps that used to be carefully explained by Ed were sometimes skipped. The detailed technical explanations that had set Wheeler Dealers apart were reduced in favor of quicker cuts and more flashy storytelling. For casual viewers, this might not have been a problem. The episodes were still entertaining, but for die-hard car enthusiasts, this was disappointing. They tuned in to learn, not just to watch before and after shots. And as it turned out, Ed himself shared their frustration. The breaking point in 2017. In March 2017, Ed China took to YouTube and posted a video that stunned the automotive world. Calmly but firmly, he announced he was leaving Wheeler Dealers. His explanation was clear. The production company, now under the influence of the American network Velocity, wanted to cut down the technical detail in the restoration segments. According to Ed, the network believed these long repair sequences slowed the show down. They wanted to streamline, save costs, and make the show more entertainment-driven. For Ed, this was unacceptable. He argued that the repairs and explanations weren't just filler. They were the soul of the program. Without them, Wheeler Dealers would lose their identity. So Ed faced a choice. Compromise on the very thing that made him passionate about the show, or walk away. He chose the latter. His departure wasn't just a resignation. It was a stand, a refusal to let television executives water down what he believed in. Shockwaves and fan reaction. The response from fans was immediate and explosive. Social media lit up with outrage. Longtime viewers felt betrayed, not just by the network, but by the circumstances that forced Ed out. Forums filled with accusations that Discovery and Velocity had ruined the show by chasing profits over passion. Many blamed Mike Brewer personally, believing he had sided with the network. The situation quickly escalated beyond normal criticism. Mike and his family became targets of online abuse. He later revealed that he and his daughter received death threats. At one point, police had to step in because of the seriousness of the threats. Mike was devastated. He had lost his on-screen partner and now faced hostility from the very fan base he had helped build. This darker side of fandom revealed how deeply attached people were to the chemistry of Mike and Ed. For many viewers, the two weren't just television hosts, they were part of their lives. Losing that bond felt personal. The new era with Ant Anstead. The show continued. Producers brought in Ant Anstead, a former police officer and professional car builder. Ant had charisma, skill, and credibility. He was passionate about cars and tried hard to win over skeptical viewers. For some, Ant was a breath of fresh air. His enthusiasm and energy brought a new dynamic, but for others, it was impossible to accept anyone other than Ed. The comparison was constant. Fans measured every new episode against the glory days of Mike and Ed's partnership. Despite Ant's efforts, the sense of magic was different. The chemistry between Mike and Ed was unique, and no replacement could replicate it. While Wheeler Dealers tried to reinvent itself, Ed moved on to projects that gave him complete control. In 2021, he launched Ed China's Workshop Diaries on YouTube. This new series allowed him to go back to what he loved most, diving deep into mechanical challenges, experimenting with unusual engineering projects, and taking the time to explain everything in detail. No executives to cut corners, no time limits to rush through repairs, just Ed doing what made him happiest. The series quickly built a loyal following. For fans who missed the original Wheeler Dealers format, this was exactly what they wanted. It proved that Ed's appeal had never been about the show's brand. It had always been about his authenticity. Mike keeps the wheels turning. Meanwhile, Wheeler Dealers continued to evolve. After Ant eventually left, Mike was joined by Mark Elvis Priestley, another talented mechanic. The show survived and still entertains millions, but the comparisons to the past never faded. Even Mike admitted in interviews that his chemistry with Ed was special and could never be recreated. Still, he believed the show had to adapt if it was to continue in a competitive television landscape. For many viewers, Wheeler Dealers today is a different program than the one they first fell in love with. It still has deals, restorations, and entertainment, but the spirit of the early years remains unmatched. When Ed China announced his departure in 2017, the fallout wasn't just about a television show losing its star mechanic. It was about a cultural shift in how audiences viewed authenticity versus entertainment. Fans had invested years into the relationship between Ed and Mike Brewer, and the breakup felt personal. Discovery and Velocity, the networks behind the series, insisted that the changes were necessary for modern television. They argued that shorter, punchier episodes with less technical content would appeal to broader audiences. To them, this was an evolution. To Ed, it was a betrayal. This divide highlighted a bigger question. Should a show cater to new viewers at the cost of alienating its core fan base? Wheeler Dealers found itself right in the middle of that debate. Mike Brewer under fire. Mike Brewer's role in the drama became one of the most controversial aspects of the story. While Ed made it clear that his decision was rooted in creative differences with the network, some fans chose to believe that Mike had pushed him out. In interviews, Mike was visibly frustrated by this narrative. He explained that he had nothing to do with Ed's decision and that he respected Ed's choice. Still, the online abuse was relentless. One particularly dark moment came when Mike admitted that someone threatened to come to his home and kill him. His daughter was also targeted, which forced him to contact the police. For Mike, what should have been an exciting new chapter in Wheeler Dealers turned into one of the darkest periods of his career. Despite this, he pressed on, determined to keep the show alive. Ant Anstead's arrival and challenges. Ant Anstead officially replaced Ed in the 14th season. A former police officer turned car builder, Ant brought impressive credentials. He had already hosted his own shows in the UK and had a reputation for being both charismatic and mechanically talented. Ant quickly bonded with Mike, and the two developed a solid working relationship. Viewers saw Ant tackle projects with enthusiasm, and his youthful energy injected something new into the format. For many, Ant was more than capable of handling the technical side of things, but the shadow of Ed China loomed large. No matter how good Ant was, comparisons were inevitable. Fans still measured every episode against the golden years. The chemistry between Mike and Ed wasn't just about skills, it was about personality, pacing, and a shared history. That kind of connection is almost impossible to replicate. While Ant's run lasted several successful seasons, it never completely silenced the critics. The old guard of Wheeler Dealers fans continued to argue that the show wasn't the same without Ed. When Ant eventually stepped away from Wheeler Dealers to focus on other projects in 2020, Mike welcomed another co-host, Mark Priestley, better known as Elvis. Priestley had an impressive background. He had worked as a Formula One mechanic with McLaren, giving him high-level experience in the automotive world. His expertise and calm personality offered something closer to Ed's style, but with a professional motorsport edge. Fans appreciated Elvis's technical knowledge, and for some, he was a better fit than Ant. Still, the comparisons to Ed persisted. Social media threads and comment sections continued to debate which mechanic was the best and whether Wheeler Dealers had permanently lost its spark after 2017. Ed China's life after Wheeler Dealers. While Wheeler Dealers cycled through new mechanics, Ed was thriving in his own way. Free from the restrictions of network television, he launched Ed China's Workshop Diaries on YouTube in 2021. The series became an instant hit with loyal fans who had followed him since the early days. What made it so appealing was its authenticity. Ed didn't need to rush. He could spend an entire episode explaining the intricacies of a gearbox or the creativity behind an electric vehicle conversion. In Workshop Diaries, viewers found the Ed they had missed. Methodical, passionate, and endlessly curious. His projects ranged from quirky vehicles to experimental engineering, showing off not just his skills, but his inventive spirit. For Ed, it was a chance to return to his roots and reconnect directly with fans. The success of Workshop Diaries proved something important. Ed's appeal had never been tied to Wheeler Dealers as a brand. It was tied to his personality and his refusal to compromise on quality. What made Wheeler Dealers work in the first place was the unique balance between Mike and Ed. Mike was the deal-maker, always negotiating with energy and charm. Ed was the craftsman, carefully walking viewers through each step of the repair. The formula was so simple, yet so powerful. Fans didn't just learn about cars. They felt like they were part of the garage. The show struck the perfect balance between education and entertainment. When that formula was disrupted, the soul of Wheeler Dealers changed. While Mike, Ant, and Elvis have all done solid work, the original chemistry remains unmatched. Even Mike himself has admitted that recreating what he had with Ed is nearly impossible. Could there be a reunion? One of the biggest questions fans still ask is whether Ed and Mike could ever reunite for a special project or even a revival of Wheeler Dealers in its original form. Both men have addressed this in interviews. Mike has said he would welcome the opportunity, but he doubts it will happen. Ed has remained diplomatic, saying he has nothing against Mike personally, but is focused on his own projects. The real obstacle isn't their relationship, but the networks and production companies that control the rights. Unless a major shift happens, a true reunion seems unlikely. Still, the fan demand remains strong, and in television, you can never say never. The broader lesson. The split between Ed and Wheeler Dealers illustrates a larger lesson about creative industries. When a show becomes successful, pressure builds to expand, streamline, and chase broader appeal. But sometimes, those very changes strip away the authenticity that made the show special. Ed's departure was more than a career move. It was a stand for creative integrity. He refused to dilute his work just to fit into a formula that executives thought would sell better. That decision cost him a prime spot on one of the most successful car shows ever made, but it preserved his authenticity. For Mike, staying meant shouldering the burden of keeping the show alive even while facing backlash. His resilience kept Wheeler Dealers on the air, but he also had to accept that things would never be the same. Wheeler Dealers today. Even with its changes, Wheeler Dealers remains one of the longest-running automotive shows in history. Its legacy is secure. The current seasons with Mark Priestley have found their rhythm, blending technical skill with entertainment, and the program still has millions of loyal viewers. But many fans see Wheeler Dealers now as two different eras. The original Mike and Ed years are remembered as the golden age, while the later years represent an evolution that some embrace and others reject. This division is a testament to how deeply people connected with the original duo. It wasn't just about the cars, it was about trust, chemistry, and the sense that viewers were truly learning something valuable. The story of Ed China and Wheeler Dealers is one of both triumph and tension. From humble beginnings, the show grew into an international sensation. But success brought pressures that ultimately forced a painful split. Ed walked away to protect his principles and found freedom in doing things his way. Mike stayed to carry the torch, enduring criticism but ensuring the show lived on. Both men, in their own way, remained true to themselves. For fans, the debate will never end. Was Wheeler Dealers better with Ed? Has it managed to reinvent itself successfully? The answer depends on what you value most. If you love detailed restorations and Ed's calm teaching style, the early years will always be unmatched. If you enjoy seeing cars flipped quickly and personalities mixed up, the new seasons offer a different kind of fun. But one thing is undeniable. Together, Mike Brewer and Ed China created something magical. Their partnership inspired countless car enthusiasts, educated viewers, and left a mark on television history. Even years after the split, their story still fascinates millions because it was never just about cars. It was about passion, integrity, and the struggle to stay true to what matters most. If you believe authentic passion matters more than profit, subscribe now. We'll keep bringing you the untold stories of car legends, industry secrets, and the truth behind your favorite shows.